have Victoria with me. So I'm really excited to have her here. And I'm just going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, so my name's Victoria. I am a travel nurse and I have traveled all over the US and now I've gone abroad once. And anyway, I've been a nurse for 5 years. I went to University in Houston and I kind of got my start there in my experience, and then I became a travel nurse in 2020. So I've been doing it for quite some time. I have lots of tips and a lot of advice for anyone who's like interested in like what I do.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard about travel nurse. I don't know exactly how it works. I know that you get to travel, obviously, because it's in the title.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. So I'm in my 20s. And I'm like single and don't have kids. So it's easy for me to be a travel nurse, but actually a lot of people do it once their kids are out of the house as well because they're able to like travel and be unattached. So
awesome. Yeah. And I think that's the best time to do this kind of stuff, right? Like when you're in your 20s, when you're single, when you have no kids, no commitments.
right.
It is
Sure.
it is seriously the best time. But can you tell me a little bit about what is a travel nurse?
Right. So a travel nurse is someone who um I mean, they can have a bachelor's in science of nursing. They have a registered nurse license. And for me, because I got my licensure in Texas, I'm a part of a compact license, which is like 30 states I can practice in under my license without having to apply for a new license, pay more money. Um, so basically, they contract me through an agency, and I spend the next 13 weeks working for them. And like they have shorter contracts, occasionally like an 8-weeker, but like the typical standard, gold standard is like 13-week assignment. And yeah, so basically the staffing needs are essential, and without finding a replacement, the hospital's gonna be in trouble because typically in units where um, that are high stress, there's high turnover. So, like for me, I'm an intensive care nurse and I work with pediatrics. So, like that can be like a stressful job, and I think like there's really high turnover. So, in order to like meet their staffing needs and for the nurse to patient quota, they have to contract us. Um, so yeah, I work
That's
for the
pretty cool.
agency and not the hospital, but the hospital is the one who initiates the job postings.
And usually for these kind of positions, is most of the people at the hospital also travel nurses, or maybe they just contract a couple just to fill out the needs that they're like with the if they're already workers already there.
Right. So it should just be a couple, but some hospitals have gotten so desperate, like during COVID, all their like nurses left. And so I was primarily working sometimes with just travelers versus like there should only really be a few of us, like ideally, but I think just healthcare in general is kind of going through this massive nursing crisis, like amongst the entire nation. So they're having to recruit us more frequently.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's gotten worse during this pandemic and this COVID, and I know there's a shortage for nurses all over
Yeah,
the globe.
exactly.
And you said they're usually 16 weeks. That's the average time.
Yeah, so like 13 weeks, about 3 months.
Okay.
And the cool thing is if you're, just getting familiar with a place, like you can extend, and if the hospital still has a need, you can let the manager know, like, hey, I'd really like to stay here. I'm really enjoying working with you. If you still need me here, I would be happy to extend for another, 13 weeks. And then they contact your recruiter. And then from there, you can negotiate higher pay or same pay, depending on what they're willing to do for you. So you don't have to pick up and move every 3 months. That can be really difficult for people.
Yeah, I could imagine it could be quite exhausting too. You just kind of like started getting used to a place in the 3 months,
Right.
and then you have to like pick up your luggage and go again.
Right. Like if you just now found your gym, just now found your community, just now found your friends, and then you have to go to a new city, like that can be really rough. So it's all depending on you. But I would say in general, travel nurses do have a type of a certain personality type where they are very flexible. They can just like, they're okay with being alone sometimes. Like they're not, unless like there are really cool circumstances in which people travel with their husband and their kids. And their husband might work remote and he can like take care of the kids during the day. But those are like very rare circumstances. Um, or like sometimes like an older couple, they'll rent an RV and they'll just go city to city and like they enjoy it. It's like something it's like how they explore and how they still earn income.
100%. And I think that's the thing that I try to emphasize too. Like, when you put travel into your job, that's your lifestyle. It's really, you make it part of your life.
Right.
But what inspired you to choose to become a travel nurse?
Oh, great question. So I was just doing some personal travel and some like volunteer trips. And I just randomly, I kept meeting some travel nurses in the airport. And then I like already knew I wanted to be a nurse. And so I would like pick their brain. I'm like, so what do you do? Like, I was trying to wrap my head around it. And then like, it just happened to be, I was on this one volunteer trip in the Virgin Islands and I was on the beach and, I happened to meet, it was like a campground on the beach. And I happened to meet um, this one nurse and she was like, you should do what I'm doing. And like, she told me all about it. And I just remember that. Well, that was 6 years ago. And
Wow.
I almost forgot that I met her. And it's like one of those things that kind of like stick with you, but you don't, I don't know, it's not on the forefront of your mind. And once, so the funny thing is that I actually ended up going to the Virgin Islands as a nurse. And like, I went to that very same beach and I like had deja vu. Like I remembered, I'm like, oh my gosh, I had a conversation here with this woman like 6 years ago. And now here I am like doing exactly what she did and like having the time of my life in the Caribbean. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's just those kind of conversations that kind of changes your life because you're just like, oh my God, like someone told me about this and now I'm living
Yeah,
life.
definitely.
I actually already have a question. So Geneva from Unwrap Your Map, she asked, what's your favorite part about being a travel nurse?
Oh, okay. So I like not being associated with like the drama on the unit and like the little politics. It's like you come in, you do your job with excellence and like you get to leave. You don't have any performance appraisals. No one's like you feel like you're not under the telescope as much. Like I feel when you're a full-time staff nurse, like it's like you join the student council of nursing and there are so many high expectations of you. And it's like, it doesn't matter how well you do your job. It's like you've never done enough. and, and so you feel like you never measure up to your manager, to your boss. And like, I get to come, I do my job for 3 months, and I'm like, week 13, time to clock out and never see you again. And even though it's like, I do make friends, like, don't get me wrong. I make friends with people and I make good relationships. And like, if I do want to come back, like, I, I have the opportunity. But yeah, some places I never want to go back, and it's nice. It's like I don't have to, and I never have to see these people again. And you just get like 2 references, and you can move on.
Yeah. Awesome. I actually invited one of my friend who's a nurse in Toronto, and she actually hopped on and she's like, I have a few questions here.
Oh, cool.
So she was saying like, what was the question? She was asking about the shift hours because I know usually shift hours are very long for nurses, and is that the same situation for a travel nurse?
Yes. So lately, it's funny. So, okay, I'll tell you the normal. The normal
Okay.
is 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. But lately, for travel nurses, they're trying to normalize a 4th shift. And that would bring you to 48 hours a week. And we are like, no, we do not want to normalize this. So there are plenty of contracts for 48 hours. And with your recruiter, you can just negotiate back down to 36, or you can keep the 48 depending on like how much you want to work. But I feel like if you want a true work-life balance, then 3 is like the best.
So it's similar, right? It's like the 12-hour shift
Yeah.
for a few days a week.
Yeah.
So it's very so like you get like, I know usually like you get, I think it's, you take the 12-hour shift and then you get a break and then you take another 12-hour shift.
Yeah. So certain states have like a nursing union. So in California, I get 3 15-minute breaks and a 30-minute lunch. In Texas, it's technically not the case because like we don't have a nursing union, so it's not mandated by the state. But at the end of the day, we travelers help travelers, and we always find those like really nice full-time staff members who just like they're friendly. But we just watch each other's patients, and we kind of like give each other breaks.
That's awesome. And I think it's nice that you mentioned that every state's different. So I'm guessing every time you go to a new job, you kind of have to like relearn what is the rule kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not too much difference, but yeah, you should get familiar with the different.
Right. But then, yeah, and then you get to work in different environments, and then you get to see if, like, you know, it'd be like that city, or it'd be like that hospital, and then having that flexibility to kind of make it longer if you wish to stay and extend your contract potentially.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I like that. So how often do you change locations? Do you usually go with the 3 months that you mentioned, and then you usually change, I guess, 4 times a year?
So, yeah, if I worked 4 times a year, that means I'd have to do back to back to back assignments. And typically, I'm just like one of those people who love my time off. So right now I'm taking 5 weeks off, and I'm thrilled. And so it's like I get off for the Christmas, New Year's break, and then it's like, okay, I'll go back to work right after that. So it's like I don't even have to request a holiday off. And typically when I am working on a holiday, I'll work it just because it's like I've had my fair share of time off. I do like to change locations because when I started to be a travel nurse, like for me, I was thinking, wow, this is going to be like a really fun opportunity to see a lot of cool places and do a lot of fun things. So, typically, we'll make a little list of things I want to do in that city, and I'll do that, and then I'll move on. I think an ideal situation would be to travel with another travel nurse and like split rent and like do all these fun things together and have like one car and like, kind of go on road trips on the weekends. But it's like you kind of meet your people along the way if you didn't like start this with like a friend. So there's like a lot of opportunities, but yeah, I like to move around.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned that you had those breaks. So I guess it's like you take one contract, and then you could take, once that contract's over, you could take that break, and then you just find a new contract. Or
Yeah.
I guess they propose you another contract.
I have never been questioned about a gap in my resume. And I think that's amazing and one of a kind.
It is true, because I know like in the corporate world, of course, like sometimes people are really scared about those gaps and, you know, those questions during those interviews.
For sure.
Yeah, so Yeah, but I guess maybe it's part of the occupation. I don't know if that might be something that's quite normalized as a travel nurse, for example.
I think it's the high demand and it's like they need you, and as long as you've had that experience within the past year, then they'll and you have good references, then they're willing to accept that.
Awesome. So you're still submitting those references, or I guess like the agency submits those.
To the agency, and I guess some people are loyal to one agency and one recruiter, but for me, I'm not. I've worked for maybe 5 different agencies, but I would say that does sound excessive. But during the pandemic, some of my contracts were 60 hours a week for 4 weeks.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
and then I would move on to a new agency and a new contract. And I was going for the highest paying jobs at the time and less about location because it was a pandemic. I couldn't do anything fun anyway.
Yeah, and I guess that's also really nice because you can like every contract's different as well, right?
Yeah,
It's the hours.
for
Um,
sure.
and I was gonna ask, I know you mentioned about studying because when you were studying, you said that like you have the license that you could work anywhere across the U.S. So is that an extra credential that you have to do beyond your I guess your regular studies, like a regular license?
Oh, so my current license, like I said, it's good for like 30 something states, and every year more are joining the compact because at the end of the day, during COVID, they didn't care what state we were from. They're like, we need you now. And they would grant us like almost overnight access to be able to practice in Illinois or wherever. So it's really more about money and us being able to pay their nursing agency, and they make us do separate background checks, but I never have to like study or take a test.
Nice. Awesome. So I have a question here. So I'm not sure if you would have any expertise in this, but my a friend of mine, she asked, do you know have you ever seen any Canadian nurses applying to the States for nursing? Do you know any of the stuff about
I'm
this?
Canadian, but Filipino nurses, yes. And when I worked in Abu Dhabi as a travel nurse, I was the only travel nurse that has ever worked there ever. So I made a special contract with them that was like approved by the CEO. And basically, they didn't call me a travel nurse, but I was a travel nurse. So anyway, the Filipino and Indian nurses that wanted to work in the United States, they basically they just have to take their NCLEX just like anyone else. And once they take their NCLEX, say like they have to choose a state to take their NCLEX through. So say they choose like state of New York. Sorry, because it like might be easier for them to like come through the state of New York. So they take their exam, they get licensed, and then sorry,
That's okay. Take your time.
they get licensed, and then like they can apply for jobs, and they usually get granted like a special visa, I think,
Awesome.
because
Okay.
because of the nursing shortage. Like nursing is one of those jobs that you can get a visa in some countries just because they're so desperate.
Yeah. And do you find that in the States as well, especially right now, I'm guessing, in the pandemic? Yeah.
Most definitely.
Do you feel like there's a shortage in a certain part of the state or any specific state?
All of them.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I know that's the same thing here.
Yeah.
There are even like new schools even having like extra funding just to get people to go to nursing school because we're so short on this right now.
Right. Yeah.
So there's just like I've seen like new schools opening new programs. Like if they didn't have a bachelor's in nursing program, now they do because we just need that in the country.
But from my experience, nursing school was very hard, and 50 of hundreds of us applied to the program. 50 of us got in, and only 28 of us graduated.
Wow.
So like, depending on which school you go to, it can be like extremely hard to get the bachelor's degree.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I know it's very competitive as well. You need a very high GPA to get in.
Yeah, definitely.
I was gonna also ask about what are some of the challenges of being a travel nurse?
Challenges?
Yeah.
There's way more benefits. I could talk about benefits all day. It's just adapting to your new environment and being able to like adapt to a 1 to 2 day orientation at the hospital. They expect you to already be like your qualified professional self and just assimilate into their hospital. I mean,
Right.
the benefits are the pay, the freedom and flexibility. On average, you can get paid anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 a week.
A week.
A week.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yes, it's taxed, but it's like a lot of money.
No kidding. So I'm guessing the pay will vary by state,
Yep.
every state, depending on where you're working at.
By state and by demand. It's like, when you want something on demand, you have to pay for it. If you want delivered to your door, you have to pay all the extra taxes and fees.
Yeah, I was when I was promoting this live, I think I was searching out for hashtags about nursing, and I think I saw a video, and this guy was just saying how like he can earn, I don't know, like 1 year or equal to his pay of like years working in one hospital at home.
Yep. I more than doubled my pay by leaving the bedside and working as a travel nurse.
Amazing. And then how about like housing and transportation? Do they include any of these with the agency?
Do they include what?
Housing?
Oh,
or transportation to the country, to the state?
yes. So they give a travel reimbursement, and it reimburses you for gas or your flight. And then they also give you a housing stipend and a meals and incidental stipend. And if you already like sort of have a tax home, then you don't pay double. And well, you pay double, so the stipend is non-taxable.
Okay, got it. Okay, but then your salary will be, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And I'm guessing like the pay will obviously differ depending on your department and your specialty. So I'm guessing some specialization have a bigger demand.
Yes. So like during the pandemic, adult ICU nurses were getting paid the highest salary, and we're getting paid as high as $1,000.
And what are some of the high demand? What are some of the highest demands? I know you just mentioned ICU.
ICU, ER, L&D, and they sometimes will even pay like text messages all the time for like home health and hospice nurse there. So, but usually like ICU, ER, especially right now during flu season.
Yeah. My friend just asked, so she said, is there nursing management travel jobs, or are they mostly just frontline nursing?
It's usually frontline nursing, but I have seen social work travelers and travel respiratory therapist travelers.
Okay, and that will be the same kind of thing. Like it's like you work with an agency and then you could work for short term.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That's awesome. It's nice because I told her to hop on and she's like asking all these very specific questions. I think it's nice. So, what advice would you have for somebody who wants to become a travel nurse?
Oh, good question. So basically, you should have 2 years of experience in your specialty. And then from there, just apply for an agency, set up your profile, and go from there.
Awesome. And do you work, I know you said you work with a couple of agencies, but do you work with them at the same time? Or do you like, you try one and then you do another? Or can you apply to a couple at the same time and see which job comes in first?
Yeah, so I keep my profiles active for a few, and then I reach out to all the recruiters at the same time, and whoever has the best job is the one I apply for. I might apply for a few, and then I hope to get like a job offer first, for maybe one, but sometimes I don't get it, and then I have a backup plan.
Awesome. I think you're cutting off a little bit. I think it might be your car, but I know it's cold outside as well.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. But I can still hear you. I think one of the other questions I want to ask you is, what was I going to say? Oh, do you have to like interview for each job? So when you apply for a job, then do you have to interview with the hospital for each of those jobs?
So my last job, they did not interview me at all, and it was automatic acceptance. But most of the time, it's just a casual talk with the manager, seeing, well, what kind of patients do you usually take care of, and what are you comfortable with? It's not really like an actual interview of you. It's more like, what skills do you have? What are you comfortable with? Have you seen this before? When can you start?
Got it.
It's
nice.
very.
It's not like it's not very like how like job interviews sometimes are very intense. They take like two interviews, 3 interviews sometimes.
Oh, not at all.
Awesome. So it's more just like more casual and just trying to get to make sure that you know what you're doing and like you're comfortable in coming.
Making sure you're a fit. Like,
do they expect you to come pretty soon? Like if you have a job offer, then they're like, okay, you have to be in the city, ready to roll in like a week. What is that like?
So sometimes they have a posted start date, and then sometimes you tell them I can only start at this date, and then sometimes as soon as possible start date. So it's something you can negotiate.
Awesome. And can you also negotiate salary as well? Is that something common in the industry?
Only with the agency, not the manager.
Got it. So you can negotiate if you have a job, then you can negotiate the salary with the agency, and then they can negotiate on your behalf.
Yes, but usually I don't apply for anything if I don't already like what I see. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think it's nice because that way you're also earning a lot more, because sometimes the salary changes depending on the state, depending on the contract, depending on the employer. So it's kind of nice that you have that kind of fluctuation as well.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I know I took some of your time, but thank you so much, Victoria. That was super helpful. I think my friend who's here, I think she's really happy that she got to learn self-triple travel nursing, because she's been in the nursing industry for a couple of years. So I was like, oh my God, I'm talking to a travel nurse. You should like hop on. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, so you work with, like you said, you put your profile on like 5 agencies, I think you said?
Yeah, give or take. Maybe like 3 active ones. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, thanks for letting her to like.
Yeah. Anyone.
That's what they
direct message me. That's fine.
Awesome. And we have a certified Canadian immigration consultant too. So, maybe you have some more inquiries, and maybe you'll be referring different people over to your agency soon.
No problem. All right. You start me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Victoria. I hope you have a great night. I really appreciate it.
You too. Bye.
All right. Have a good night. Bye.